I am Tiffany Salcido.
And today we wanted to talk to you about an important topic, some that's been on a lot of people's minds. The more that people have talked about the need for connection and empathy and understanding and communication. Um, the more that this keeps coming out, and we've heard it talked about a lot, and it can be frustrating in the way that it's talked about because some people will downplay it, and that's soft skills, right? And so, um, for me, first of all, soft skills is a terrible label, right? It's a terrible label, but it's something people use. It's an elevator term, right? We make everything an acronym and a short phrase now. And so soft skills is something that, has been, you know, created as a buzzword. And so people will either look to it or look down to it, right? But I mean, I like to think of it, Tiff, I don't know about you, but I really like to think about soft skills are human skills, communication
Mhm.
skills, right? Influence skills, which are things that leaders need as much as the skills that they have at what they do, right? Or technical skills, right? So I don't know. When you think of soft skills, what goes on your mind, Tiff?
Well, so I think that the first problem is a marketing problem is that we call them soft skills. That's I agree with you on that. I feel like if we could rebrand, I would call it like complex skills because it's the way that you blend that technical know-how and understanding of whatever the industry is that you're in with the human skills, the people skills part of it. Um, and so I always like to kind of ask this question or think about if you could go back and think about like the most effective leader or the most effective person that you've ever worked with or worked for, was it their technical expertise or how they made people feel that really stood out in terms of why they were exceptional? And I would venture out to guess that it's a combination of both, right? Combination of both. I never, ever, ever want to undermine the value of technical skills. Obviously, if I'm going to the doctor, I don't want the doctor to be fun to be around, but doesn't know how to do a suture. Like the technical skills are important. If I take my car to the mechanic, I absolutely want my mechanic to be really good at fixing cars. So I don't want to undermine the value of technical skills, but I think in our society for many, many years, there's been such a heavy um, emphasis on the value of technical skills. And so the other part of it, the people skills, gets forgotten. And if I literally go back and think of every workplace I've ever worked in, I've never sat back and thought, gosh, I wish people had more like knowledge around rules, regulations, policies, and procedures. If these people could only get better at knowing legislation, I'd really enjoy working with them better. Like I've never had that experience. It's almost always been this place is too much drama. This is toxic. This is why are these people so sassy in emails? Why can't my supervisor understand that blaming and shaming is not the way to approach problems? Like the soft skills are almost always what's lacking in my perspective. The people part of it, and whether we love it or not, we are all, for the most part, in a people business. We're making products and services for people. We work with people. We're supervising people. We're leading people. We're being led by people. Everybody is a person. And so, not having these people skills, I think, is a huge missed opportunity.
Very rarely do people have a job where they're not affected by other people, or they're not doing something to provide a service for other people, to fix something for other people, right? I mean, we're talking about, skill set, mechanics, doctors, IT professionals. Sure, they need to know all of that stuff and have it
Mhm.
within their mindset to be able to address an issue and to fix it. But who are they fixing it for? That's
Mhm.
the important thing to think about. Hey, I'm fixing your computer. I'm fixing a person's computer. If the person is not happy with it and comes in frustrated or doesn't exactly know exactly what's going on, and then the IT professional gets frustrated because everyone should know this. This is the problem, right?
Hmm.
A lot of people think soft skills equal like common sense. Well, that's just common sense. They go to these are the technical skills, and because I know them, everyone else should know them, or they're not smart enough to know them. And that's the challenge. I real quick to
Yeah.
I I my daughter and I we took a visit to the ER, and got to meet all the nice people in the ER in the lobby, and it wasn't a fun visit. She was there for a reason, but
Mhm.
it's something that she has been dealing with for gosh, a couple years now. And whenever she goes and sees a doctor, the doctor just listens to her diagnoses. I mean, listens to her complaints and then prescribe stuff and said, let's go back and see. And she gets referred to specialists and things like that. And then the specialists will look at her and say, oh, no, everything's fine. Don't worry. But they send her results. And the results, I don't know if you've had blood drawn, like we have Kaiser. And when we get the results, we get them online and we get to see the results. And there's a green, yellow, and red. And if something's in the red, my daughter's not just going to say, "Oh, it's okay, I'll just walk it off." Right? She wants to know what's going on, and she hasn't really got a lot of good explanations from people. And it culminated last week where she was meeting with a specialist, and the specialist just told her to not worry about the issues that she's having, even though if you were to look online and look at the numbers, they're alarming. And so she came crying, and we were talking about it, and she's, I don't know why they can't just talk to me and tell me what's going on. And so eventually we ended up going to the emergency room on Saturday morning, and the doctor assigned to her was very patient, very communicated, very communicative. Um, she could tell, I mean, he could tell that, we were a little alarmed, confused. And so
Yes.
he actually sat down with us and went over the results and what they meant. And, my daughter's a little shy, a little
Hmm. Hmm.
introverted. And so she, I said, well, can you please explain these things to her? She's an intelligent woman who knows how to look things up. And when the message that she's getting from you guys is it's not that bad, but everything that she's looking up is saying it's alarming, you're causing anxiety and it's affecting her personally and professionally. And he said, yeah, no problem. So he took the time to sit down with us in the lobby with other people. These busy doctors, and the lobby was getting
Right.
full and more full. And we really appreciated that. And she felt so much better about stuff that she had been so nervous about for months. Just that one 5-minute explanation of what's going on and what to look for and what to know and what is don't worry about it and what is maybe we should worry about it if there's because there's different levels of red. Right?
Right.
And so
Right.
that's the level of importance that connections have. My favorite mechanic is somebody that I get along with every time he sees me. He gives me a handshake and gives me a little bro
Yeah.
hug. And just got my oil changed from him yesterday. Yeah, no worries. I'll hook you up and I'll talk to people. I know somebody who does this. And yeah, I have the same car or I've had the same problem. He's so engaging that that is the person I'm going to go to, right? And
Yeah.
so that's in all of a sudden that's my guy. And so when sometimes, yeah, I got a guy, let me introduce you to him. Why am I going to introduce him to you? Because you're going to like him too, right? So it's such an important piece of what people do that people overlook, especially those folks who are technical and task focused. And I think we've shared the stat before. 80% of people that get hired or promoted are based off of the job that they did in the last job. So the task that they did in the last job. So being an individual contributor where you can just focus on your skills and
Right.
your ability to get things done, get you promoted. And now you have 8 people underneath you who do the same thing, but also have families, have health issues, have kids issues, pet issues, right? Want to go on vacation at the same time, don't like the way that the other person looked at them, or, other departments don't want to talk to you just on general principle because you have different acronyms, right? And so these are things that we overlook those and we don't address them And when we don't address them, you have people like Tiff and Carl having podcasts about why aren't people connecting, right? And
Hmm.
so it's such an important piece, and just breaking down those ideas of soft skills. When a lot of people think it's, oh, are you good at public speaking or engaging? You don't have to be an extrovert. You don't have to be, engaging and connecting with people. Soft skills are about being able to communicate clarity, which is the most important thing, expectations, right?
Right.
And have a little bit of emotional intelligence. How am I feeling about things and how am I landing on other people and how are they feeling about it, right? Conflict management, be able to have those crucial conversations, right? I always tell people crucial conversations don't have to be difficult conversations if you're
Mm-mm.
really staying on top of things. Being adaptable and flexible, not just figuring out that everyone should know this or everyone has this same thought. And building those relationships, thinking about the connection I have with this person is going to pay off somewhere down the line, even if I don't think that it's worth spending that time right now. Where is it going to come back to me in a positive way? So those are things I'm really thinking about when I think about that idea of soft skills. And I mean, I know you've had people in your life who devalue them or I don't even know if they devalue them. They think that they're just not as important to focus on
Right.
as, as those technical trainings and technical skills.
Right. Well, part of that I think becomes from the fact that a lot of workplaces are very focused and driven by results and data and credentials. So
Right.
who's got the experience here and who's been doing this for 3 years? Well, I hate to say it, friends, but just because you've been doing something for 3, 5 to 8 to 10 years doesn't mean you're good at it. So, um, and really thinking about just let's review the resume and see how long that they've been working in this industry or this field or this technical skill. It doesn't mean that they're a good person to work with. And so a lot of people who do focus just on results and credentials and longevity, they undervalue the actual skills that help teams thrive, where that productivity and results and experience comes from. And those are things like, again, communication and empathy. And like you mentioned, the ability to be flexible and adapt and to collaborate with other people. And so, soft skills, and again, I'm hoping we can rebrand this to something else, are absolutely essential. And they're important for people to develop, especially as like we move into the future where AI is kind of taking over that technical skill and all of that investment in technical skill is not going to really move you to the next level because we can get that from AI. We can get that from technology. The expertise that people spend years building, I can go online and tap in a few prompts and find out exactly what my doctor went to medical school for 27 years. So the people part of it, I think, is an art form. And I know that for those of us who are relational, and relationships is where we feel value, maybe we take that for granted, but it's absolutely something that you can evolve and develop if you are really looking for good outcomes. So there's a model that I like. It's called the skills mismatch model. And what it does is it looks at how education and training and workplace needs really do fall out of sync. So when we're thinking about like where skills are mismatched, there's a few different categories or a few different layers of this. We have what we call the vertical mismatch, and this is where someone's education or qualifications don't match their job level. We see this a lot with our millennial friends where they are highly educated. Maybe they have a master's degree, maybe they have a PhD, but the only job that they can find is like administrative work or something that doesn't match their education and qualifications because they just need to work. We also can see where we have a horizontal mismatch where you have education or training, but it's in a different field. So I went to school for IT, but I'm doing case management. Or I went to school for, to be a medical a physician's assistant and I'm working at Starbucks because I need to make money. So you're educated, you're just not working in the right field. But the one that we are talking about, and is the one that potentially is the most critical, is for those people who have those strong technical and academic credentials, but they don't have that interpersonal, the communication or the leadership skills. And so all of that technical knowledge that they possess becomes unusable because people don't want to talk to them. So it's incredibly critical for us to really look at that soft skill technical mismatch, because if we have people who again have incredible amounts of technical knowledge, we may not benefit from that knowledge if we struggle with relational gaps, if we can't listen to each other, if we can't provide good feedback, if we can't show empathy and connect with people, all of that knowledge becomes kind of a moot point because nobody wants to talk to you. Nobody wants to listen to you. I'll do the opposite of what you say to do, even if I know it's right, because I didn't like the way you told me. All of that can be part of that soft skills mismatch.
Yeah, and that's you see it every day. You
Mhm.
know, I mean, just going through that right now, just having that a conversation about that with my daughter, who's a recent college graduate, and she was talking, oh, well, I want to use my degree. I want to use my degree, and I told her, I said, baby, I don't know how many people actually use their degrees in the jobs that they're in,
Right.
right? I was a high school, I was a history major. Thought I wanted to be a high school history teacher, and then I here I am teaching adults in a social work setting where I never expected to be in human services or social work.
Mhm.
And that's something that happens. I mean, how many people, like you said, get jobs just because they're what's available?
Mhm.
And when you have that mismatch, it can really cause people to not be well, first of all, they're not going to be as passionate about what it is they're doing. They might be passionate about the quality of work that they do. But like you said, if the quality of work is measured based on metrics and, hitting your numbers, then that's what you focus on. And if you're a task focused person, then you're right in the right place. But, that's a conversation I have with people in human services all the time. I are we in a compliance-based program or are we in a assistance program, right? And that's the challenge because they're two different animals.
Right.
Compliance-based means no, if you don't do something, you are non-compliant and you are, you know, um, ixnayed from the program or put on hold or punished, as opposed to an assistance program, which is recognizing a lot of what people are dealing with and going through are things that are much harder to fix than just sanctioning them, right?
Right.
Which I guess we're not doing that much anymore, but still having that idea of, not giving people the empathy, not giving people the understanding, recognizing that people are dealing with stuff and how do we help them power through dealing with stuff rather than just shutting the door on them because we need to get stuff done, right? And so that's definitely such a huge issue. And you see it, a lot of folks there's so much technical training going on. There's so much technical training, right? And looking at the list of trainings that are offered to people, they talk about in specific jobs, how to do your job, how to process this, how to do those things. You know, uh, that's definitely important. And I think a lot of those folks, they go through. I take part in some induction classes for different counties. I know you do too, Tiff, and they get trained on how to do the technical stuff, but then they call us in to talk about the human stuff,
Right.
what to do with that technical stuff, right? If the process that you're doing, shows that somebody's not eligible or is partially eligible and they're not going to get exactly what they want, do you just say, I'm sorry, it says you're not going to get what you want? That's the technical aspect as opposed to how am I going to break this to them? How am I going to talk to them, let them know this is what to be expected and that we're here to support you with that. But that's such a divide for some people because it's not focused on. And if you're not a human being in human services, you
You're doing
know,
it wrong.
and I think this is the time for us folks who are relationship focused, right? This is going to be a time more needed than ever because we're so much automated and AI, whatever people think, whether they think it's a bubble or not, there's so much of that going on right now. And people are saying, well, they're going to take all these jobs. Well, they might take a lot of those technical jobs. People, robots have been building cars for 40 years now, right? And so those technical skills have been diminishing in terms of the abundance of them, not the importance, the abundance of them. And so, how do we have those conversations with people about how to utilize those skills to be able to connect with people? And that's, I mean, and you said there's a lot about that as well, but I just think there's folks that are stuck in their mindsets of, no, this is what I know. And technical skills, I mean, let's be honest, they're easier to learn. They're
Well,
easier to
yeah,
learn. They're easier to engage for a lot of people.
yes, yes, and okay.
Mhm.
I'm going to do the yes and. I'm doing the improv today. So I do agree with you here. So one of the biggest challenges is that um, workplaces in the technical skills um, tend to move faster than our education systems can. So a lot of the technical skills, the things that people are learning in school, they become outdated within a few years. And so you're always in this constant level of learning with the technical skills. Like, even if go back to the mechanic, changing a carburetor, back in the olden days, some people, a carburetor, what is that? Changing a carburetor looks very, very different from like mechanics now because we have all the cars are computerized. We have fuel injection. We have all of these things, these electric cars, and like it's a lot different than it was. So someone who's been a mechanic for 50 years, there may not be working on these newer vehicles without additional training and education and whatever that looks like for a mechanic. So technical skills do become outdated. We're always in a constant flux of learning, which is smart, but soft skills are enduring. Soft skills are transferable. And so when I think about like AI, right? Because that's a real thing that's on the horizon, whether it's a bubble or not, it's here. A lot of machines can do some of those repetitive tasks. They can do that data driven technical work. People are putting data into an AI and taking an analysis that would have taken, weeks and months and years. It's done in a matter of minutes. But what AI cannot replicate is the human experience. It cannot replicate the empathy. It cannot replicate the ethical judgment. It cannot use the art of persuasion to get people's buy-in and on board, which what makes those soft skills even more valuable than ever. When I think about like if I got to build my own team, if I got to choose like who worked with me, I absolutely am going to look at technical skills, right? I'm absolutely going to look at what experience people have in a certain area. But what I'm looking for even more are they an easy person to work with? Are they open minded? Are they flexible? Do they have good work ethic? Are they coachable? Are they willing to learn? Are they good communicators? Though, are they good problem solvers? Do they take initiative? These are things that I'm looking for because I can teach anybody technical skills. I can grab anybody and teach them how to do the work. But if you're not a good person to work with, it's going to be a mismatch every single time. And so most people don't fail at their jobs because they don't learn the work. Most people fail at their jobs because they're not good people to work with.
Yeah.
And so that's why I put that emphasis on be a good person to work with, work on the people skills. And even if we go to management, Carl, you're always the one with the statistics. I don't remember stuff like that. But um, how many people leave their job because of their manager? Not
Yeah.
because of the work, but because of their manager.
Yeah.
That's that. What's the number, Carl? I know you know it.
75%.
75%. See, it's a significant amount. So that's a huge amount of people who leave a job when they have the technical skills and the ability to do the job because the person they're working for and working with lacks some type of soft skill. So that's a significant. If I'm just going data driven decisions, that to me is a huge incentive to be able to reframe and rethink about again those people skills that people possess. And if I'm really thinking about creating the culture in my organization, if I'm a leader saying like let's look at how we operate, I would absolutely put some investment in making sure that people have those skills to be able to navigate working with people.
Absolutely. Your culture isn't your mission statement. It's how
Right,
your people experience it,
right.
right? And that's such an important piece to think about. You have your mission and vision, and then you have your values. And your values should be about how we treat each other as we are performing the mission to achieve our vision. All right. They're all related. And it's so important to recognize how are people feeling. Asking people, how are you, is such a powerful thing, right? We know that, that concept of people don't always remember what you did for them, but they remember how you made them feel. And that's the idea that we keep coming back to. Harvard Business Review says if you have one person at work that you can connect with on an empathetic level and that is providing you non-judgmental support, you'll stay at the job longer and you're more productive, right? Is that
Mhm.
about skill set, right? And when we're talking, yeah, it is about skill set because this skill set is about being a good human relator, right? And
Mhm.
connecting with people on that. It's not about how much you know, it's about how people experience you when you're telling them what you know, right?
Mhm. Absolutely.
And that's such an important piece. I mean, we know, these things that are soft skills, we're going to spend some time talking about them in the next few episodes. But like I said, just thinking about communication and conflict management and, having, expectations and having one-on-one conversations, right? They drive performance, right? Clarity reduces errors. You don't have to redo things, right? Trust increases people's effort. I'm loyalty is one of my big, values. And if I see somebody that I know has my best interest in mind, there's not much I won't do for them,
Mhm.
right? They shape culture, right? What leaders tolerate or what teams repeat. And in civil service, we see that there's cultures of hierarchy of how people interact with each other and how they're supposed to interact with each other. And it goes back generations, which, you know, I mean, as important as they are, you know, people change. That's why we have problems with kids these days because they don't think like we do, right? And then they impact clients and customers. I always talk about with customer service impact. What is the impact you have on people? And for me, impact is am I interested in going back to work with that person or that organization again, even if they didn't provide me the service that I wanted specifically right now and then? Is it still something? Are they still somebody who's worth my time and effort? And that's such an important piece, especially in human services, where very often we are the last resort. But just because we're the last resort, does that mean we can't be the best resort?
Right,
If we look
right.
back at old podcasts, and we had Dr. Rob Leon talking about, creating your job, think of it as a resort. And so just because we're the last resort, so people have to come to us, doesn't mean that we don't want them to come to us.
Right.
So that's how soft skills really blends your technical ability and your personal ability.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we need to think of a right term for that, Tiff, because we need to get away from that because it's become a buzzword that people just immediately have a limbic response to. And so we need to figure that out. So you and I, that's our task.
I listen, don't be putting stuff on my plate. Maybe we'll work on that. I feel like I don't know how I feel. I need to think about it more. I'll be honest. I'm going to think about that more. I just what I hope for, and I think this is what's driven me into the field that we're in now. What I've been doing human services since I was a kid. I'm going to say I was a kid because I was very early 20s, you know. Um, and what's driven me to where I'm at today has been the lack of, right? The lack of. I rocked the technical skills. I rocked it. But I was good at the people skills as well, and that's what I think helped me be successful. And when I look back and I reflect on like my time, I always think like if this supervisor had communicated with me this way, then maybe it would be different. If this manager would have looked at this piece of it, I could have been more. Imagine what I could do. Like what made me want to leave this job, you know, that I loved the work, but what made and it almost always comes down to the people part of it and the power struggles and the uh, you know, people feeling threatened or not being able to accept feedback or like the way they share feedback. It all comes back to that. So if we could like wrap this up, if I could give you like some hot tips of what to do with this information, the first recommendation I'm going to make is to stop looking at soft skills as something that's nice to have, but really use it as a way of being like front and center in our performance conversations and the way that we promote leaders. Because remember, the higher up that you get on the organizational chart, the less those technical skills are necessary, the more that you have to lean into those people skills and the strategic skills. And so let's make that a big part of our hiring and development. Another thing I would recommend here is to encourage people to continuously learn and learn not just about those technical skills, those ever evolving technical skills, but also to train on things like leadership, emotional intelligence. And that can be through, again, formal training programs. You can hit us up at giving www.givingthegiftcoaching.com or through CDR consulting, but do some of that training, and also practice through coaching and feedback and reflection and really making sure we're showing up in the best way possible. It's a competency just like your technical skills. It's a skill set that you have to learn, develop, practice, and continuously evolve. The last thing I would recommend, which is kind of connecting, is to really bridge the mismatch. So for those people who are technical experts, pair them with somebody who is a good communicator or who has empathy, maybe for coaching, for mentorship, etc. And for those relational leaders who are really good at the people part of that, also coach them to be able to understand how the systems and understand the systems that their teams are working within in a technical sense. So we have to have both. Both are important. I don't want to say one is more important than the other. I think both are important. And there's going to be people who are good in one area and not in the other. Like let them work with each other and figure that out to really build those relationships and build those skill sets. And so I would just encourage everyone to really think about like where you might see the skill mismatches on your team. Is it technical? Is it relational? Is it both? And also just pay attention to how you're going to keep your people skills sharp, especially as your technical environment continuously changes. And so, what are you willing to invest? What are you willing to invest into, again, the things like morale and innovation and retention when it comes to that human side of it? Because again, the data shows that's why people leave.
Yeah, well said. And just if you're having a hard time with this, or this is things that, oh, people should know this, or I should already know this. Stop shooting on yourself
Yeah.
and recognize common sense ain't common, right? And so what we think we know is just is this, but there's so much more to learn in the world. And that's one of the great things about being an educator and being a podcast host. We learn about these things that we think we already know a lot about and that we just expand our knowledge every time. So hopefully that's your mindset as well as we go through this. And we'll be spending a lot of time focusing on specific actions and behaviors within the skill set of relating to each other. And so I think, maybe that's where we go. Instead of saying soft skills, relationship skills,
Mhm.
you know, I think that's important. And I mean, if you're a relationship manager, right, working on that bottom line, how do you keep that relationship going? So we're going to talk more about that as we come in the next couple podcasts. But so just be on the lookout for that. Like and subscribe, everybody. You guys, subscribing, following us, giving us feedback. We have places where you can give us feedback, in our Instagram, our TikTok clips that we have. Hope you guys like the clips. Facebook, YouTube, Spotify. There's so many different places we can, and at givingthegiftcoaching.com. If you all want to connect with Tiff or with me on LinkedIn, right? However you want to connect with us, it really makes a difference in, what we provide for you
Right.
all as well. So until next time, I'm Carl,
I'm Tiffany.
and let's
Keep it,
keep it real.
keep it real soft.
Don't be so hard on each other. Zoom in.